If you're trying to lose weight in 2025, you've probably come across one of these trends on social media, and you might be wondering if they're worth a try. Well, hi, I'm Holly, and I'm a weight loss coach, and I'm going to be outlining exactly which one of these trends you want to be taking into 2026, and the ones that need to get in the bin. So we're going to start off by talking about GLP-1 drugs, things like Ozempic and Mounjaro. Now, my personal belief on this is it's a huge step forwards in terms of medical weight loss, and I think this is going to be especially crucial for people who need to lose weight to have an operation or a medical procedure, but the reason that they need the medical procedure is the reason why they can't lose weight, because they can't get out and walk. I think it's a huge development in that space. I also think it's a huge step forwards for those whose health has been compromised by their weight, and it will help them get their body weight down faster in order to see improved health markers. On the flip side of this, I know a lot of people are using it for an aesthetic purpose, to lose their next 10 pounds, to get beach body ready. You know the drill. I do think it's really important if you do any of these GLP-1 drugs that you have medical supervision. And the caveat to all of this is if you want to lose weight and keep it off, the behaviours of weight loss maintainers don't change. So although they might make it easier for you to lose weight because they suppress your hunger, you still need to do the stuff to help you keep it off long term. And your overall health is going to improve by doing those habits. So it doesn't get you out of not doing the habits, because if you want to lose weight and keep it off, then well, you gotta do the habits. So for that, I'm going to be ranking it in B tier. Next up, we've got fibre-maxxing. Now, the idea of this is increasing your fibre intake to the max, which in turn should help you eat more plants and reduce your overall chances of getting something like colon cancer, which I think more of us should probably be focusing on. The general recommendations around fibre intake are for every 1,000 calories that you eat, you want to be eating about 15 grams of fibre. So if you eat 2,000 calories a day, you'd want to be aiming for about 30 grams of fibre. Now, bonus points here if you can get more diversity within that fibre intake. So thinking about eating a variety of plants, because that will just help you improve your gut microbiome, and it means you're not just eating apples all week. Now, I do think that the phrase fibre-maxxing is just giving eating fibre better marketing, but in terms of a habit for weight loss, I actually think that this is an S tier habit. Alright, on to number 3, which is eating high protein. I do think this year in social media we've ended up with half the people talking about eating more fibre, half the people talking about eating more protein, and each of the two groups arguing that the other one's not really relevant. I'd argue that as with most nutrition things, actually we should be thinking about doing both. A high protein diet is going to help you, 1, stay fuller for longer, but 2, it's also going to make sure that you have the appropriate building blocks so that you can build more muscle, which is super important for longevity, overall health, and it will give you that little bit more of an edge when it comes to losing weight and keeping it off. Now, the recommendations around protein are really quite varied. You'll find that on government issued pieces of advice like the Eat Well guides, the recommendations tend to sit around 0.75 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is not actually that much protein for most people. These do sit on the lower side of the recommendations, and actually for most people they would benefit from eating more than that, which is where the number 1.5 to 2.2 grams per kilogram of body weight comes in. Now, you might be doing the maths right now and thinking, Christ, that's a lot of protein. Especially if you're in a bigger body, that number can go up quite quickly. So if you would like a slightly more crude measure of that, take your height in centimeters and eat that in grams. As with everything, you don't have to be perfect with it, you just have to be consistent. So if you can get as close as possible, that's great. So actually, I'm a huge advocate for people eating more protein, and I'd also pop this in the S tier. Alright, next up is intermittent fasting. As someone who's personally done intermittent fasting, and I did 16/8, and that actually helped me on my weight loss journey because it provided me some like guidelines / rules of when to eat and when not to eat. I do think it can be a useful tool for some people. However, for most people, I actually think that this is one of those things that can ruin your relationship with food. So if you do find that adding these rules or guidelines in actually makes things worse, and you're feeling that that's too restrictive, I don't think this is a method for you. I think the jury's still out in terms of recommendations for different groups of people, but in terms of weight loss, it's definitely not something that's necessary. So for that, I'm going to rank it in the C tier. Next up, we've got personalised nutrition. Now, this is coming more and more into the scene, and I think part of that might be to do with influencing. I think people are more inclined to want to understand their bodies a little bit better, and this information has never been more readily available than it is right now. So there's a rise in personalised nutrition where people look at your DNA, they look at your genes, and sometimes even look at your gut microbiome and say what you need to do to improve it or what sort of way that you should be eating. My personal thoughts on this is that, to be honest, most people would benefit from eating in a very similar way. If they make sure that 80% of their diet comes from whole foods and think about getting plants in and think about getting protein in, they'll be fine. I also just don't think this is something that's accessible to most people. So if you find that a food makes you feel like rubbish, then don't eat it. But otherwise, just follow the general recommendations. So for that, I'm going to put personalised nutrition in the D tier. Next up is clean eating. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this because I think ultra-processed foods have become a real hot topic this year. And with that, there's been a rise in clean eating, which does just feel like we're back in 2010. Now, I have a little bit of a theory around ultra-processed foods. I think when the world is in a little bit of a tougher position in terms of the political landscape and the economy, we get slightly more obsessed with clean eating. This is just my 2 pence on it, you might think otherwise. But my theory is that when we eat clean, it often requires us to 1, be able to cook, but 2, have the time to cook. So because you need the skills and the time and the money to be able to afford the fresh ingredients, it's something that's not not accessible to those that are the worst off in our society. So being able to afford the privilege of eating clean actually becomes a status symbol. I also think that an overemphasis on eating clean is just a straight line walk into orthorexia. Instead, you want to take the approach I spoke about earlier, 80-20. 80% of your food coming from those foods that are more optimal for you and 20% coming from those foods that are less optimal for you. More optimal is going to include things that are high in protein and fibre, starchy carbs, plenty of plants, and healthy fats. And less optimal is going to be those things that don't necessarily add nutritional benefit to your life, like a bar of chocolate. So as per that, I think clean eating has maybe the right idea with it. We should be prioritising the majority of our food being from these whole foods. We don't need to obsess over eating clean all the time. Therefore, I'm going to put this one in the C tier. Finally, we're on to using AI as your nutrition coach. Now, there's obviously a lot of debate around AI, the environmental impacts, the accuracy of it, and well, will the AI overlords eventually take over? So with all that in mind, I'm going to talk about using AI to help you as your nutrition coach. Personally, I think there are pros and cons to it. The pros being that you can actually get a semi-decent plan out of it, especially when you know the right questions to ask. The cons being if you don't know what you don't know, then you can't see any errors and you can't autocorrect that. So with all that being said, I think maybe in the future an AI nutrition coach might be the plan, but for now, maybe seeking out some humans with some expertise might be the best thing for you. Therefore, I'm going to pop this one in the D tier. So if there are any trends that are actually worth taking into 2026, I think it's fibre-maxxing and eating high protein. The rest, well, you do with those what you want to do. And if you want to know exactly how I'd go about losing a stone in the first 90 days of 2026, then you should check out this video next.